Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Congratulations. I think it'll be a very interesting and rewarding experience.
It'll be fun, and I'll take the board when I get back.
Excellent. Next item is to open a public hearing for 0 High Street and 38 Groton Harvard Road, the Lincoln Hills project. Do I have a motion to open?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. Discussion before we.
Yes, that's what I thought.
So the applicant, obviously on the agenda, it says requesting a continuance to the March 25th meeting. But on Friday, myself and Sam discovered that the abutters list was incorrectly filled out. There were 2 incorrect parcel IDs that were used. So we reached out to town council to figure out what the proper steps should be. Town council opined that the applicant, that the meeting would be opened tonight and then continued to a date certain in which we could re-advertise and re-notify all abutters. So because we got this email late yesterday at 9 o'clock, prior to the deadline, which was 3 p.m. to re-advertise, they will need to continue this to actually April 8th so that we can properly re-advertise 2 weeks prior in the newspaper twice, and then also re-notify the abutters, the full list of abutters, which is now a total of 60, I think it was around 66, when the original list was 55. So there was quite a few abutters that did not get letters, and so we want to make sure that everyone gets properly notified. So what we're going to do, what would happen is we would open the public hearing, vote on that, and then continue to April 8th. And I have an email from the applicant also requesting it to extend it to the 8th due to the abutters list. They requested continuance without discussion, as they are not here, and so that the discussion would occur at the April 8th meeting.
Great. Well,
Okay.
Do we need to read the email from town council, or do you have a copy of that email from town?
I don't have a copy with me. I can pull it up on my phone.
I know. I think that's why he started the video, but I can go back and talk to Max, but I think he'll figure it out. Yeah. Because it does say videos on it.
Okay, so this is the email from Amy Questle, Town Council from KP Law. Hi, Danny. In my opinion, the best course is to re-advertise and re-notice abutters. The meeting can open tomorrow and then immediately continue to a date that will be reflected in the new legal ad and abutter notice. Please let me know if you need anything further. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge the frustration and perhaps the disappointment of people who've gone through the trouble to show up here tonight to discuss this issue. And I'm sure it's quite irritating, and I get it. Unfortunately, by law, we cannot discuss the project without the applicant here before us, and that's just. And I'm just acknowledging this unfortunate reality, and I'm sorry.
Okay, if I ask a procedural question?
You may.
A couple of things. Could you please define who the abutters are? How far away? Is it 300 feet?
That is correct. It is 300 feet from the parcels that are on the project.
So you take the outer edge of
It's
whatever the parcel
it's
is
done
and
by the
measure.
assessor's office.
Okay.
There's a computer program that does it for you, 300 feet from the property line.
Okay, thank you. Second question is, just to clarify, there's nothing going to be happening on this development now on March 25th, your next meeting. It's going to go
Correct.
to
That
the
is correct.
following meeting. Okay, thank you. Regarding that, somebody realized recently that the mandate to be able to view this meeting, your meetings remotely, expires legally at the end of this month. We wanted to request that be continued in whatever official format is happening. Maybe you're doing it anyhow, but we wanted to verify.
That is not up to us. That is up to the state. The state has to extend that. So if the state extends it, which most likely they will, but we don't control that.
But can't this board decide that they want to?
No. That is a state allowed. The state allowed it during COVID, so that's why boards were allowed to do it. And then it was written to continue until last year. They extended it again another year, and so the state has to extend it. We don't have the ability to do that. Only if they do.
You're not allowed to unless the state allows it.
That is correct.
Okay, so we can contact Maura Healy or something like that, see if we can get it extended.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. One more question. If people want to submit comments in writing for that April meeting,
Mhm.
there's a deadline, right, to get it to you and your board?
No, so I mean, typically I would like it, at least a couple days ahead. But if you can't get it until that day of, I'll still give it to the board for them to be able to read.
For the board, you would. There's a legal document that we found online that gives a table of, for this meeting, you have to submit comments by this date.
Yeah,
Does that
that's for the applicant. Abutters are allowed to submit whenever they want. That's not a requirement for the abutters. That's for the applicant. That's only anybody who's submitting as part of the application. So you're right on our agenda. There is deadlines that they have to do.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chair,
Okay,
may
that's
I?
helpful.
Yes, Jeff, and there's someone waiting, but go ahead.
I would ask, just as a human being who's busy the day of the meeting, if it gets to us a little earlier, we get a chance to read it. If it comes to us at noon on the day of the meeting, we may not be able to get away from work to read it. We want to give it our full attention.
That's actually helpful to know.
Thanks.
So from your perspective, you would like it maybe by the week before?
The Friday before is probably best because that's when I send out all the meeting materials to the board members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, want to acknowledge the gentleman in the back of the room?
Could you please repeat the reason why this meeting is getting extended to April?
Yes. So on Friday, I received an email from a resident asking why certain residents did not receive a butters notification. So I then went back to the abutters request that was done. And when I looked at it, I noticed that 2 parcels were incorrectly written down. So what occurred was I had the applicant resubmit an updated, correct abutters request. That was then given to us late yesterday, and town council. I requested an opinion from town council on what we should do and how to properly deal with the situation to address it. And that's where I read that email where they state to re-advertise and to re-notify.
I'm not sure people understand.
Yeah, can you translate that for us?
Yeah, I'll explain. Sorry.
There's a legal requirement that the hearings of this sort be advertised 2 times in a local paper.
14 days and 7
A
days.
certain number of days before the hearing.
Correct.
So in the event that a glitch happened like this, basically termination was made by town council. We have to start over by re-advertising,
Correct.
double checking that everyone gets the abutter notification. Now, the other thing that I'm not sure people are aware of is that the applicant doesn't create the abutter list.
Correct.
The applicant submits the parcel names to the assessor's office, as you said before. And then the assessor's office generates the list of abutters which need to be mailed.
Yes, that is correct.
Those people then get a letter, they get a card to return, I think it's a green card, used to be, verifying that they were notified by registered mail.
That is correct.
So somehow there was a mistake in the first go-around,
Yes,
and therefore we have to,
we have
Push
to
it off.
rectify that. Correct.
that's just unfortunate.
I think the chair wants to acknowledge the person on Zoom first. Is that Pauline? I can't read.
Yep.
And then I'll get to the gentleman in the green T-shirt.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Kranz. I just want to ask you to stop the screen share so we can see you all in discussion. We are still seeing the March 10th, 2025 memo from Mr. Pomperian to the planning board.
You can click on that.
I tried.
Yeah, you should be able to click on ours.
Yes, I understand that. I tried. That's why I'm mentioning it. As far as the hybrid meeting decision on March 31st, that's just a recommendation. I think the town of Air has already decided
It's not
that
part
we
of
will
our
continue.
agenda.
We've
It's not our
invested a lot
agenda.
of money in it, and I'll just leave that at that. But if you could make it possible for us to see the board, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have control over the cameras.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, thank you. Just a quick question, and I would assume I'm not the only one, I might be, but what is the actual, and if this isn't the right, forum to ask this question, but what is the actual process as we go through this decision-making process if this happens or not? Because I gotta be honest, I'm completely lost. So we have in April, we get together, we talk, the applicant puts their application in, do we vote, and then how much time from then to when they would actually, if it did pass, they'd actually be able to build, to break ground, all the things that actually affect all of our lives.
Yeah, so the application has already been submitted, and there's deadlines set forth by the state law in which we have to have a public hearing within 45 days of the submission, which is this meeting. We have to open the public hearing on this date within 45 days, or the project gets constructively approved. So we're doing that first step, which is to handle the opening the public hearing. The next step is the meeting will be continued to April 8th. And then at that meeting, we will start the actual discussion and deliberation of the project. The project will not be approved on April 8th. This project will take several months of a process of multiple public hearings where the residents can come. And at every meeting, we will set a certain date at which the next meeting will be heard. So this process is not something that's going to just happen that quickly. I can't give you a timeline as to how long it's going to take, but our last OSRD took about 1.5 years.
If I may, there are things come up like, oh, there's a problem with the plans. They have to redraw them, give them back to us. We have to go over them again. Or we have a stormwater question that has to be answered by a technical person and other stormwater people. That just takes time, and those draw it out. And what you'll hear during the meetings, excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
is we'll say to the applicant, we need an extension. The applicant will say, okay, we'll extend the decision-making process until X, some date in the future. And applicants who work with the board, we dig in, we work hard on it. That continuously moves until we get to the point where we've got a project that works, hopefully for everybody in the room.
And excuse, I'm sorry, sir, go ahead.
I just something that you're going to find very helpful. If you go to the Air page, click on Planning Board, and then there'll be a section for current projects or current applications. You click on that, and you're going to see there's a wealth of links to current documents related to this. Among them are comments from the town planner, the DPW, the fire department, the police department, and CONCOM, Conservation Commission. I thought. So the point what I want to point out is, if you look through those documents, you're going to have an excellent picture of what the discussions ahead are going to be about. Because ultimately, the applicant's going to be responsible responding to every single one of those comments. So that will be part of the discussion. So if you want to get a preview of what the discussions are going to be about, the best way is to look at those comments, and because that's going to be a large chunk of the conversation. And as you can see by the number of comments that these departments left, there's quite a bit to talk about.
Can I ask one more? I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
I've got a
I
couple
just
of
want
things
to
too.
add to, Mr. Chair.
Sure, Nathan.
If Danny could just give also then, if approved,
Yes.
just quickly the appeal
Yes.
process.
But the question I had, and to that point, sir, to your point, sir, is that, again, excuse my ignorance, I might be the only one who doesn't know this, but if they get through all of the environmental, all the checks, they do everything they're supposed to do, is it, because it's an actual business, is it, and it's obviously it's someone's property, is it a voted on thing, or is it just if they make the approval, go through the approval process, like they just can do it and it goes through?
But voted on by who?
So this,
We vote on it.
so the way,
You folks, who votes on it to basically say, okay, we agree that this should happen or not?
The
So-
planning board.
yes, the planning board.
So you raise a really interesting question. Our job is not to weigh out projects by whether we like them or not. The only discretion that is allowed to us by law is to determine, and we do this through what we call findings and then decisions, that the application as finally presented to us fulfills all the obligations demanded by our bylaws and regulations. They meet those. They build. You know,
I've got a couple of comments if you don't. So I'd like to help clarify it a little bit as well. So this board will take this project in a long series of steps. So the first series of steps, and you'll see it in our bylaw, will be a determination of the number of units that are allowed on the site, step by step. Then we will look at stormwater, step by step. During that process, the law allows us to reach out to third-party reviewers, specialists in the field. We may make a decision, I think it's been recommended by our planner, that we'll make 2 decisions to reach out beyond our board to study the traffic, that would be one situation, and then to study the stormwater. So even though we get remarks from our DPW and from all the town boards, town department heads and boards, we then have the ability to reach out to more experts beyond, and those are at the cost of the developer.
not us.
The board has no budget and spends no money in cost in reviewing these projects. We have specialists in town who, get part of their job, they help us review everything. So when we get to the particular discussion, that could be an entire meeting on one subset.
True.
It might be 2 meetings on just one subset. Then each time this happens, the applicant needs to give us an extension letter. So the time, what do we have, 100, it's a certain, what's
90 days, which runs out on May
the
9th.
law says we have to do it in 90 days, but that will continue to get extended as the applicant comes in and we need to continue to discuss the project. We will be requesting the extension. They have to give us a letter allowing the extension. If they don't allow the extension, then we have to vote.
Right.
If we don't have adequate information, we can vote no at that point because we haven't been satisfied with the correct information. So in all probability, the process continues along. When we get close to the end, so it may take a month just to hire a consultant, is what I want to emphasize. So when a consultant comes up for review, we then have to write a scope of work for the consultant, a request for proposals. We have to agree on the scope,
Go to the
get the
land.
select board to sign off, town manager to sign off on the contract, put it out for review. Maybe it takes them 2 or 3, it can be 6 weeks just for a consultant to work at a subset of the work. So there's no panic here. There's a long, drawn-out process, and we're gonna look at all the components one by one. Now, but the other thing to keep in mind, Jonathan reminded you about the website, but we have several sets of regulations beyond the town's bylaws. So separate to the bylaws, we have regulations that just talk about site plan approval. They're on the website as well. We have bylaws that just talk about stormwater. Recently, the town at town meetings voted some very strict stormwater regulations that are more
More stringent than the state.
restriction than the state. So we don't just look at the layout of the land, we look at the regulations that are in our bylaws and laws. Then we look at our subsets to that, which talk about how you build the streets, how you do drainage, conservations if they're involved, and other departments that are involved. So there's all these little subsets beyond just the plans that are laid out there that they have to comply with, everyone has to comply with. So then at the end, if we get to the end,
Yep.
when we write a decision, we vote on every single one of those pieces. And that could take 2 to 3 meetings, just to vote on the actual individual pieces that comply with the decision. So it's a
And if I
interesting
may,
process.
The last thing is, you asked who votes.
Yes, sir.
2 things can happen. We can say no at some point in the process. They don't give us an extension, they don't give us what we need, it becomes confrontational, whatever. They can't come back for 3 years, 2 years on that decision. It just goes to sleep. At any point along the way, something may happen that impacts them. The economy, something else. They can always withdraw without prejudice. In other words, we want to stop the process here, but we'd like to come back to you again in the future if possible. Or everything gets worked out to everybody's happiness and it gets approved by the board. It then goes into an appeal period where anyone can appeal the decision of the board. And that's a lawyer in court thing. And that's a 2-week burst?
Let me specify on that. So there's a
20-day appeal period.
20-day appeal period, yeah.
And
any resident within 300 feet can appeal it, or if you're outside of that, then 10 residents.
Yeah. So you get a feeling for it's a really detailed process.
I do, sir, and I appreciate
Yeah. No, and I'm glad you asked the
detail.
question.
It's very, very helpful, because I walked in here tonight literally not knowing
It's
what
scary.
the expectation was if I was gonna see someone behind my house with a shovel next week. So, thank you, sir.
And just so you know, my office is on the 3rd floor. I always have an open door policy. I have plenty of people that have already walked into my office that I see in here. You're welcome to come in, ask questions. That's my job. That's what I was hired for.
Thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
Yes, Laura.
Oh,
Lori.
Lori.
Question, follow-up. Those are actually very good questions.
great
And thank you for your detailed responses. It helps to fill in a lot of gaps for any of us. The request, Mr. Diskin, that you mentioned for getting additional reviews, that's discretionary on your part, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
but it's discretionary.
You don't have to do that, but in a site like this, it's so complicated with the ledge and the steepness and all that, you would probably request those reviews. You're planning on it, okay.
We'll take the
so-
recommendation of the town departments, and in all probability, they will be recommending that, so we'll be most likely agreeing.
I-
Let's
Extra
not,
review.
let's,
And if I may, I don't think we've ever said no to a request for a review from a town department.
So-
Ever, Lori, seriously.
I
Okay.
just don't think we should be
I'm talking about
opining
the
on-
I'm
storm.
sorry, yes, we're getting too far down. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a question in the corner. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
I just had a very quick question. Of all the subsets that you review, when a plan comes in, it's from the person that's making the proposal for the property. When you're reviewing everything, all the subsets, do you review the properties that are in existence that might be affected by the project itself? So, for instance, my house, which is at 34 Groton Harvard Road, is in direct line of all the water that comes down right now. We have flooding right now. We've had problems since Emily's Way, we talked about stuff. And now it's coming back, bigger, better, faster, more huge. So if they meet all the expectations and it's a go in theory from their standpoint, what about the people that are gonna be affected by all of that? Is that one of the subsets that you do take into consideration is my only question?
Yeah, so the information that they submit to us gets reviewed by town departments, by our DPW, to make sure they comply with the bylaw, and we may go out for a third-party review that is independent of the town and the applicant. They will review it based on what our bylaw and the state regulations say.
And we would have the right to bring in our own people to talk about that as well?
No.
No. If she wants to hire, but that's typically done during the appeal process. You don't typically have that. I mean, if you want to, you're welcome to, but the typical process is the town will review it, maybe a third party will review it, and then as part of that process, if you want to have someone review the information as well and provide us with comments, they're welcome to do that.
I ask because we don't speak the planning board language. I look at documents, I look at plans, and I see lots of lines, and it looks lovely, but it doesn't look like what's gonna happen around the house. I mean, so thank you for listening.
Yes, Kathleen.
I just also wanted to add that while we're speaking about process, the planning board is governed by open meeting law. So that means that we do not discuss this project outside of this room. So anytime the planning board is discussing this project is in a public space. We're not emailing each other. We are not meeting in a room that you are not welcome in. It is all kind of public record.
Thank you. We have an open vote.
Yes.
And I asked my colleagues, are you
Good
ready?
recollection.
So if you recall, the vote is to open the public hearing. Ken, how do you vote?
Aye.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. I also think we now need a vote for continuance to April 8th.
Like to move, do you want to make a move? Should I make a motion for you?
Would you please?
Like to move that the public hearing for 0 High Street and 38 Groton Harvard Road, Lincoln Hills, map 27, parcels 28, 30, 41, 65, 70, and 189 be,
April 8th.
I'm sorry?
April 8th.
Be postponed, be
Continued.
until, I was thinking of the word continue, I don't want to say postponed, be continued until April 8th, 2025 at the planning board meeting.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sorry about that.
I have a second from Julie. Any further discussion on the continuance? Hearing none. Ken?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It is continued. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is proposed zoning amendments. And what's going to happen here is we're going to discuss some warrants for the fall town meeting. What's that?
April.
Oh, Springtown meeting. I'm sorry. I'm a man behind the times.
It happens.
Sorry. Springtown meeting. And each of these is a discussion about whether or not the board would like to vote, or will vote to either recommend or not for the warrants.
Correct.
And anyone who would like to stay, of course, is welcome to stay. It'll be fascinating, I promise.
I convinced him how fascinating the work
No.
All right.
Hey.
You're gonna have to motion to open the hearing.
Oh, I need a motion to open the hearing for the proposed zoning amendments. I make a motion to open the public hearing for the proposed zoning amendments for the April 28th, 2025 annual town meeting.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Ken?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. Danny, take it away.
Yes. All right. So on March 4th, last week, wow, it was last week, yes, I gave a presentation to the select board on the proposed zoning amendments. We have 5 of them, and I'll go through each of them in this slideshow. We also have, I've also passed out the documents to everyone. We also have them up on the town website as well for anyone who wants to see them. All right, let's see. So the first one is the zoning map amendment. Let me just see if I can get this full screen. Oh, okay. There we go. There we go. Takes a little second. All right. So the first one is the zoning map amendment. Let me get to the. All right, here we go. So this parcel is where the wastewater treatment facility.
And what color on the map?
Yes,
The light green
it is.
parcel surrounded
It's
by
this one right here, surrounded by red.
Light green parcel surrounded by red. Thank you.
Yes. This parcel was sold to the town of Ayer given to the town of Ayer in 1975-ish, I believe. 1978, thank you. It was originally zoned as part of the Devon Enterprise Zone. So when it was given to the town in 1978, it should have been rezoned at that point to general residence. It wasn't brought to my attention until just a couple of months ago that this was not correct. And you can actually see on the right-hand side, the boundaries of Devon is in the gray, it's in the black dash. You can see that parcel not shown on there. It's not included as part of the Devon's Enterprise Zone. So I think what just occurred was when it was transferred over, the zoning map was never properly amended. This has happened before. We did this actually on the Harvard Road parcels, the 27 and 29. They were amended through the citizens' petitions, but the zoning map was never updated, so it legally was never done.
Okay.
So this is what that process is. It's just to properly rezone it as general residence, like it should be. It should have been in 1978.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Ken?
So, I was hoping you'd put up the map as it exists right now, where it's shown in the gray.
You can go back one, Commissioner? No.
This one does not have it. I can.
Slide doesn't.
I can. Hold on one second. I can pull it up.
Really quickly.
Good,
I have it up on the website.
thank you.
The endorsed map. So
So,
you can
right,
actually.
right. So now it's evident that that existing piece of land, which is the town land, is highlighted in gray, indicating on our map that it's within the Devon's Enterprise Zone.
That is correct.
So we're rectifying that problem and clearing it up by putting land that is our land, is not in the Devon's Enterprise Zone, in the right current zoning,
Okay.
and coloring it accordingly in the map.
Correct. And it has to be zoned general residence because anything else would be considered spot zoning.
That's the zoning, till I understand, General residence is the area contiguous to this piece of land currently.
Correct. It's
Thank you.
this green area.
So it's not expanding it's not changing anything there. It's just making it contiguous.
Correct.
Thank you.
And
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
for clarification, the land that's contiguous is the other DPW land that's about 50 acres roughly.
Yes.
Existing DPW land is a combination of the land we're talking about, which is 76 and a half acres, and another piece which is 50 acres. That current 50-acre piece, which is accessed right through the DPW office on Brook Street,
Yep.
is currently zoned
General
general
residence.
residence.
Correct.
All right, well,
So the entirety of the DPW property, whether you get at it from the Bishop Road or from Brook Street, the contiguous piece all ends up in the proper color on the map, ends up in the general residence zone.
Pauline, yeah, do my board colleagues have a comment first before I turn to the public? Yes, go ahead, please, Nathan.
Is any of that land privately owned?
No. It's also owned by the town of Ayer.
Chair acknowledges Pauline Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that is basically my question. That is all town-owned land, so even though if we change the zoning or fix the zoning to general residence, it will not be sold for general residence? Can we admit to that or agree to that?
Yeah, I'd say yes, because that would have to go to a vote of town meeting for it to be sold.
And is there any reason it can't be zoned light industrial or one of those other categories that would properly fit DPW?
Yes, because that would be considered spot zoning.
Understood. All right, well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to spring town meeting to amend the zoning map to correctly show lot 25-23 as general residence and not as part of the Devon's Enterprise Zone.
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. The next one is to see if the town will vote to approve the amendment to section 320-5.3.2 residential accessory uses or take any action relative thereto. Would you bring us up to date on that, please?
Yes. The state signed into law a zoning act which made accessory dwelling units by right. And what that means is that accessory dwelling units are no longer a special permit as was previously required. There is a set of draft state regulations which set forth what towns need to comply with, and that is under section 760 CMR 71. Within that section, there are several other sections that discuss ADUs and definitions, what you can or cannot do, requirements. So there's a whole list of things that are in there, but what we're proposing is to remove the previous wording that we had under section 5.3.2C, because all of that is now is no longer valid. And what we're proposing is these additional points that are shown up on here. And it's just merely for, if someone were to look in our bylaw, they would find something about the accessory dwelling units, but most of it will just refer back to sections 760 CMR 71. So specifically, the first one is the accessory dwelling units. It's allowed by right in all single-family residential zoning districts as defined by 760 CMR 71.02 definitions. And single-family residential zoning just means any zone that allows single-family homes. Number two, all accessory dwelling units shall be governed by all requirements set forth in 760 CMR 71, protected use accessory dwelling units, including the following. One, maintains a separate entrance either directly from the outside or through the entry hall or corridor shared with the principal dwellings, sufficient to meet the requirements of the state building code or safe egress. Two, is not larger in gross floor area than half of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling or 900 square feet, whichever is smaller. is subject to such additional restrictions as may be imposed by the municipality, including but not limited to additional size restrictions and restrictions or prohibitions on short-term rental. Prohibitive, however, that no municipality shall unreasonably restrict the creation or rental of an ADU that is not a short-term rental. Number 3, accessory dwelling units shall only be subject to building permit process. And number 4, multiple old ADUs on the same lot shall require a special permit in a single-family residential zoning district as set forth in 760 CMR 7103, number 5.
Okay, good. Kathleen and then Nathan.
Sorry, because I do have a few questions and comments on this. So the first is this kind of like a draft of how you would present it at town meeting?
This is what I would be presenting at town meeting.
Okay, because I think this is just my own personal feedback, is that if I'm someone who isn't involved in planning board and I show up to town meeting and I look at this, I would kind of assume that the planning board came up with this. And I think what is actually happening, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the state came down and put in regulations. The state said that it's no larger in gross floor than half the gross floor area or 900 square feet.
Correct.
And so I think I would really encourage any way that you can make that very clear is that this is not kind of something that the planning board spent time. Not that we didn't spend time and effort on it, but that this is
not coming from us.
It's not coming from us, and primarily, if I may, I think my understanding is the sentiment of this is that the state has regulations and we need to comply with those regulations.
Yes.
And I would just say that message doesn't really come across. So if there's any way to make that clear.
So I don't think there's any way I can explicitly write it in there other than the fact that it says section 760 CMR. That's the state code.
Okay.
And what I can do is when I do present this at town meeting, I can preface that the zoning act that was voted on by the state is what requires this.
Like a little highlighted box.
Yeah, I could probably
It's
I
almost
could.
like two definitions we need: CMR, Commonwealth regulation, and ADU.
I think that would help a lot.
Yeah, I can do a slide before, kind of giving a little bit more
background. Because
background.
if you're not familiar, you'd be like, where'd these numbers come
Yeah.
from? Like, why 900? I want it to be 700.
Yeah.
It's like that came from
Yep.
the state.
Yep, I can do that. I can give a quick presentation before this one so that everyone understands where it is, and just so that everyone knows. As of right now, this has been enacted. So on February 2nd, this law came into effect, and now anyone who wants to create an ADU is allowed to do it by right, even though we don't have it in our bylaw.
Right, and so that's my next question is, given the state of these circumstances, if folks at town meeting, for whatever reason, vote no on this, can you help me understand? Because my understanding is the state put this down, and so what does a no vote amount to?
All that does is, so all we're doing here is fixing our bylaw. What would happen is if someone votes no, our bylaw is just going to show the...
Like fixing our bylaw on the title? Like, I'm just trying to make...
This is what a zoning... That's what a
clear.
zoning amendment
Yeah,
is.
it's funny. You use the word fixing like it's broken.
Yeah, amending.
Updating, amending, bringing into compliance, aligning with the state.
Yeah, and I can add on the slide before this, I can create a slide that kind of it goes through all of that.
Because I know ADUs were voted on, I think, in 2018, and so
Yeah,
if
that
you don't
was
have
our...
that history, you might be like, oh, Ayer is adding ADUs, net new, which is not the message.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I will add a previous slide with as much information so that everyone understands where this is coming from.
Just to be clear, a no vote
Doesn't change anything.
doesn't change anything. It just means our bylaws
Is
are kind
incorrect.
of
That's correct.
wonky.
Yep.
Okay.
Nathan? And then the gentleman in the back. Nathan first.
I got one before.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Got some more from the board.
Quickly, I understand that accessory dwelling units can be a part of the existing structure or a separate structure. Just quickly, where is it defined that it can be a separate structure? Is that going to be in the state?
That's in the state regulations.
Thank you. Ken?
There's a whole long draft of
Yeah.
the state regulations, which is why I only reference the regulation, but I only talk about the basically the requirement.
Ken? I haven't forgotten you. I have to do my board colleagues first, then go to the public.
Am I getting ahead of myself that the discussion of changing section 5 to the table is separate? We're gonna talk about
Yeah,
that
that's a separate
We're gonna
warrant
talk about
article.
that next.
Yes.
Okay, so now I got more.
You got more, okay.
So I thought it was a valid point that Kathleen brought up. We're not even allowed, now typically in zoning on the town meeting floor, or any change that we make on the town meeting floor, there can be a change as far as an amendment. It can be amended on town meeting floor to a less, typically, zoning is not allowed to become more restrictive on town meeting floor, but it can be more less restrictive. Can this even be amended?
You can get amended, but the AG will kick it out.
So, okay, so that's I'm glad
More
you
than
brought that
likely, the
process
AG will
up.
kick it out, yes.
99% they will.
So that's a good reminder to all of us, including the folks in the room, that whatever we do at the town meeting floor, for Kathleen and others, will go immediately right after that to the Attorney General's office, where
Yes.
they need to approve our town meeting vote, basically.
Correct.
And we'll find deficiencies in that if we do not do pretty much what's required by law.
Correct.
So we don't really have a heck of a lot of choice here. We're just complying with the regulations and laws that were put in place by the state. And it's an attempt that we all are aware of that are interested in affordable housing. We know it's an attempt to make more affordable housing units in the town or around the state. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Yes, sir.
I'm confused.
Me too.
Now, I'm assuming that this is a town bylaw we're talking about.
We're gonna need to.
Yeah, well, come on up,
People
sir.
aren't gonna be able to hear you.
If you come up, just say your name, your address, and then your
My
comments.
name's Dennis McGillicuddy. I'm at 40 Groton Harvard Road.
Welcome, Dennis.
I'm confused about this. Is this a town bylaw here, or is this a state regulation?
So within our town bylaw, we have a section that talks about accessory dwelling units.
Okay, let me finish. Is the state mandating that they remove some of the restrictions from the town bylaw?
Yes.
How do we get to that point? I mean,
The state legislature voted on this. And
state legislature.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't vote for it.
Nope, but the state legislature did.
So what we have to do in order to not have this work is to what? Get rid of the people in the state legislature?
Talk to your rep.
Yeah, vote.
Yep.
Do that.
What I need to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's one other part to this that might be really important. And it's right in this local town zoning bylaws, that all of our zoning bylaws start with state regulations. We then basically have subsets in the towns, but all of them are in compliance with chapter 40 of the general laws. It says right in the very beginning of the bylaws. So just to make it clear to people that zoning is typically not created, the language is not typically created right here on the town level.
Correct.
We take the laws from the state and we might manage them a little bit locally, but the intent is most of it has come from the state historically.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
Any more discussion?
Any other questions? Yeah.
Move for the board to approve. Take to the town meeting, the spring town meeting, the amendment to sections 350-5.3.2 residential accessory units.
320, sir.
320.
I'm sorry, glasses. Wow, 320-5.3-2 residential accessory uses or taking any action relative thereto. Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
Ken, how do you vote?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. The third one is to see if the town will vote to approve the proposed amendments to 5.2 Table of Use Regulations or take any action thereto. Again, if you would be so kind, sir.
Yes. So what happens is now that it is allowed by right and the multiple ADUs are allowed by a special permit. The table of use regulations also needs to be updated to show that. So the table of use regulations originally would show this as a special permit. Now it's being shown as permitted by right. And then the multiple ADUs is also shown as a special permit through the planning board.
I'm just going to take a moment because this may not be transparent how to read this.
Yes.
So if we're going from left to right, if you scroll down to where you see the orange blocks, you'll see accessory dwelling unit. And then if we move left to right, what that is going through the different zones. So we have an A1 and A2, which are two single-family zones, general residence, then the downtown Ayer, Park Street Form-Based Code District, then the Wave FBC is the
West Ayer Village.
Form-Based Code, the multi-use
Transitional.
general business, light industrial, industrial, and then the special healthcare area, which is where the Neshoba, the hospital. So what you see here then is the letter P means yes, that is allowed, and it's what, approval of the planning, P means planning?
Permitted means by
It's
right.
permitted, it's by right, except light industrial, industrial, and health where it's prohibited. That's what the N means no. If you look at the idea of multiple ADUs on a lot, what you're seeing where everywhere where it had been permitted, it's now a special permit through the planning board, except for light industrial, industrial, and healthcare, which is which is prohibited, which is a no. That's why the N's are there. So I just wanted to explain what you're seeing on the table of use regulations. First, comments from the board, and Nathan first, and then I'll take public comments.
One thing we've learned last year,
Yo.
is that special permit by the planning board, in general means that if you meet the regulations and the bylaw, it's extraordinarily likely, I think you said, I'll use the 99% likely, that it'll get approved.
Yeah.
With conditions.
Yes. So the way it works is there's a special permit criteria set forth within our bylaw, and there's 6 sections within the special permit criteria. If you prove to the board that you comply with each of those 6 sections, or if you can't show that you meet all of them and you can condition it in a way to make it meet those 6, then the board would vote yes. And it's a 4/5, a supermajority vote.
Any further discussion among board members?
Yes. Okay, so I wanted to point out, I know Danny's aware of it, that we're actually replacing the word in our bylaws that it said accessory apartments.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it would make sense if we had the old as well as the new when we go to town meeting. So we can show them that in that 5.2 is a table, but 1.14 used to say accessory apartments because that's the way we talked about it in the bylaw before.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're changing that because that's the new correct way to call it, an ADU, accessory dwelling unit.
Okay.
So I'd like to recommend that.
Yep. I'll add that.
And the other thing I just discovered when I was looking at this, I guess I should have figured it out a long time ago, is it's only the very first page of this table that has the language that says section 5.2, table use regulations, and then the zoning districts. It's missing on the other pages.
Yep.
So I'd like to recommend, I don't know if we have to, I don't think we have to go to town meeting to amend the.
No, to
listing
title
and the heading, to title it. So when you see that, when I see the first page, it tells me what it is, it's 5.2, but that page, now you added it here.
Yeah, I added it there. I mean, that's an easy fix.
Yeah, so-
That's just titling.
I think it makes for clarification in the actual
Yep.
tables.
Thank you.
Excuse me?
Any further comments from the board?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that.
I
when you
think
look-
someone.
The board, no, I just want to check the board first. We good? Julie, Jeff?
It just, I was to say, accessory dwelling units is something like putting something on my property as I get older so my family can move and be with me to help me. That's the other reason for accessory dwelling units, not short-term rentals, not stuff like that. It's so you have an opportunity, or my family wants to live on the property with, we want to have a, whatchamacallit, a place where we both live. That allows us now, and it brings in lesser expensive housing.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, we're talking in technical terms, but that's really what it means also.
Yes, Kathleen.
There's a
Yeah,
comment
there's a comment.
there.
It went away.
I think they
Oh, I
said
can-
something
I can do
about
it, yeah.
rental uses, if I
Yeah,
recall.
can they be sold is the question.
There's a comment on the
Are they?
comments.
Yeah, I know.
Go to the comment chat, view. Okay, so what did that say, the last
Are
one?
these structures for rental purposes only, or can they be sold?
So there's a lot of clarification still needed through the state regs, but based on what we know, no, you're not allowed to sell it. Right now, it's for rental purposes.
Separately from the rest of the parcel.
Right, but if you sell the whole,
You sell your whole property.
Yeah, you can sell the whole property. You can't sell it individually. I know this is something that Mass Planners has been blowing up about condo units and like how if you can condoize. As of right now, no, but that's kind of still something legal that it needs to be worked out through the state.
I'm going to turn to public comment. Ms. Nearing?
Two quick questions. One is, could you please include a key so we understand what all those symbols mean in the public view of this? It's very
Yeah.
hard to grasp, but that would be really helpful.
Yeah, typically the whole document already has it at the bottom, but I only cut out that, but I can include that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Are Airbnbs allowed in Ayer right now, and will they be afterwards?
No, so under our bylaw, we don't have we don't allow for Airbnbs.
Was that recently?
We've never, no, the bylaw has never allowed for it.
Okay, and I meant not a.
And I know, because I know this had previously come up with a previous property in town, and that's been, they got building enforcement on it.
Yes, Julie?
That person had a follow-up question about parking. Can I just read
Oh,
it, or
yes.
I don't want to put us out of order.
I mean, I know who SM is by chance.
Do they require parking?
There is a requirement for parking. It's set forth in the draft in the regulations from the state.
Good. Do I have a motion?
I think.
Well, I originally, when I looked at this at home, I originally thought that 1.1 and 1.13 were saying the same thing, single-family unit, but that's really not what it does.
You mean?
Oh, that's
Other
other
accessories.
accessory is typically.
It says,
Yeah, I think that's, well, no, because home occupation is what that's its own thing. I don't know why that's there. I mean, it's something that's existed in our bylaw, so I'm not proposing any change to it, but I don't know what the
no,
intent behind
but
it.
I'm saying is 1.1 is a single-family dwelling, right?
Detached, single.
1.1?
Yes,
It's not on the screen in front of you.
Danny.
Oh, in our actual, hold on, let me just pull up.
On the chart.
Yep. Yeah, that's what it is, correct. Yep.
Single family home.
1.1 is a detached single-family dwelling, yep.
So that's a dwelling unit. That's one dwelling unit.
Yep.
Well, then you added line 114, so now you're adding, that would actually be a second dwelling on the property.
That's what an accessory dwelling
Yeah,
unit
okay,
is.
it's not duplicating line 1, it's an additional.
Correct. It can be within the.
That's true, that's
So,
true.
but yes,
Okay.
it's its own, and it's its own.
I thought it was redundant, but it really isn't, because this is the accessory to go along with that. Are you gonna change that to a dwelling unit instead of a residence or whatever it says?
It says it
Because
is.
On 1.1, it says, are you talking about 1.1? It says detached single-family dwelling.
okay.
Motion?
Move to recommend. That the town, move to recommend the town vote and approve the proposed amendments to 5.2 table of use regulations, or take any action relative thereto.
Second.
For Springtown meeting, excuse me.
Okay, great. We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none. Ken?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. It is approved. The fourth one is to see if the town will vote to approve the proposed amendments to section 320-8.1 floodplain overlay district, or to take any action relative thereto.
So there was one, that is supposed to say 8.2.
Oh, it's supposed to be 8.2?
Yes, but
Okay.
the actual bylaw, it does say 8.2.
Correct? Okay.
Make this
Okay. So, I did not put it all into a slide. It's a very long document. It's on the website. I have copies if anyone wants to look at this. So basically what we're doing here is, this update is to go along with the state, the new FEMA maps that are coming, and the newest model for the floodplain bylaw that was given to us by DCR. So the floodplain overlay district, we must comply with the new model by July. So we're doing this now just to make sure we're in fully compliance before the new FEMA maps come out. The proposed changes add more detail within the floodplain so that there's no confusion, like specifically calls out who the the actual word is the flood program specialist. It's the it's the flood enforcement officer. He's the one who handles the determination on floodplains, and this one is the building commissioner. Floodplain administrator, thank you with it.
Conservation.
So I just wanted to clarify, we already have a floodplain overlay district in
Yes.
place, right?
Yep.
Does this change the borders at all? So it's the same overlay district?
Wait.
Or?
No,
Whoa,
so
oh.
the flood maps will be
The
updated.
flood maps will be
Once
updated to
those get
reflect
updated-
the correct FEMA
Yes,
designation?
correct. So once those get updated and get given to us, I think July is what they're saying. At that point, that's the new overlay district.
There may be changes in the borders at that
So
point.
this will set us up for that July?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So the bylaw won't need to change. Our zoning map won't need to change because it's based off of what the FEMA flood maps are.
Okay.
So if you want to look, we also have the model floodplain bylaw up there. It's added quite a bit of to it. We had to 8.2.9. There's like several new points in there. They talk about cars now, subdivisions, severability, disclaimer for liability. There's just a whole lot of changes that came out. A whole new set of definitions that came out as well, that go along with this, which is also part of your another zoning amendment as well. So this is really merely just to be in compliance with the new state regulation.
Okay. Jeff?
I believe FEMA redraws the floodplains every 10
10
years.
years.
So this is something that comes up when FEMA does it. And FEMA does it for emergency management, which is used by all different groups who will deal with land, insurance, all that stuff.
Yep.
So, thanks.
Great. Anyone else on the board have any comments or questions?
I think, if you don't mind a comment, this is typical of what is gonna happen on a periodic basis, I know the maps change too, but
Yeah.
as agencies change their names, as
It's killer.
sections of the law get more restrictive because of climate change.
Yep.
They're basically tightening up the language here to reflect those overriding consequences. But in our case, the most important thing, I guess to get down to basics here, the most important thing for us is when we look at a project and it falls within that overlay district, how that's enforced by us and how we regulate it is really what's gonna be important in the long run to us.
That's correct.
So we're not gonna piddle around with the exact language of this because the language has been approved by attorneys from the state or
Correct.
FEMA or whatever the case might be. But when it comes before our board, we'll open this section, similar to the example I gave before.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a project that falls within this, now you have a whole updated, accurate set of regulations and guidelines, whatever they are, the bylaw, to comply with that so we can vote on it and discuss it and make some sense out of it. So
Yes.
that's my comment. Thank you.
Good. Any public comment or questions on the floodplain overlay? Yes, Ms. Nearing?
Could, what you're reviewing be posted on your website?
It is on there.
Was it put on today?
No, it's been there for several weeks.
Okay, where is it?
I'll show you right now.
Okay. And what was my other, Danny, do you know at this point, is there a major impact of floodplains in Ayer? Have you been able to preview it?
I've seen draft ones. I can't be 100% sure yet.
I'm assuming it's climate change impacts. Okay.
I've reviewed it. It varies from place to place. Like a part that you thought would have gotten bigger might have shrank. And it's really hard to read when you go to the draft because there's so many different hash marks and colors that you have to remove layers and then add them back in and compare the two. It is not easy to review their draft because of that. So I'm really looking forward to the new one coming out just because the draft was so hard to try to review. Because we did have certain projects that did become before conservation and the planning board that I did review with the new revised maps, proposed maps. I couldn't do any enforcement on them because they're not accurate, they're not active yet. To see if there'd be any change in there, and there might have been minor change. Some of them actually it was less. So it's a crapshoot, to be honest with you. And to try to look through and read them, and you can go right ahead and try to see if you can find it to do it. But like I said, the overlay layers that they have on there, there's 3 or 4 for one little section. And I don't know if anyone's ever tried to review the FEMA maps. They use the Google map and then they put that over there. So if it's tree lined, you're trying to look through trees and a hash mark to try to see you can't see it.
Yep.
There's different overlays though. There is, but if you're going on the actual FEMA map, I'm not saying our zoning map. Our zoning map, you can do that too. The actual FEMA floodplain map, it is a Google map with those photos on. You cannot add or remove.
Tabs though that you can select.
All right.
So Lori, the proposed bylaws are all shown under the zoning this right over here on the tab. It was what's also was shown on the legal ad as well.
So this is, what you're looking at is buried somewhere in?
It's right here.
Oh, the bottom one. I gotcha. Okay.
You can also see the PowerPoint that we're looking at is under the meeting materials.
Yeah.
I saw some hands over here. Yes, your name and your address?
Sure. Rachel Kazera, 30 Harvard Road. I just was wondering if the new floodplain administrator would be receiving training or have like a procedural book that they would follow in order to ensure that they're understanding their job, and also would they get a raise as well? Because I think Schultz is his name.
Yeah. So the building commissioner is currently already it. He has been. It's just we're labeling it in the actual bylaw, and he does get training on this yearly. He has. I don't know about yearly, but he has to get trainings that he's required to maintain.
But because it's an additional title, does he get further compensation to?
I don't know.
Okay, I thought that his contract is coming up, and I think you guys or the select board votes on it.
Not us.
Maybe it's the select board then. So I just didn't know because I feel like it's a big job. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
It is a big job.
When reading this, I just got a little confused on a couple of things. So like they get the FEMA, the floodplain administrator gets the FEMA plans, and then that translates to the zoning in town of what's considered floodplain. Do they also have like discretion of what's considered flood, or is their job basically take the FEMA map, match it to our town map, and that is?
That's it.
Yep, and then you follow what's set forth in our bylaw.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I have a property that's on the water. I'm above the water. The FEMA map touches my foundation now, the old one, floodplain. 19 feet of water I have to show up to get into my basement. I may find out that the new FEMA map cuts through my house now. I don't know. There's global warming, there's also human encroachment. So it's a balancing act. And like you said, if this gets redone every 10 years, so they kind of go like this.
All right, thank you. You have a comment?
Yeah, I think that just on a general note, the amendments to the map are generally going to be close to the existing location. That there hasn't been, to the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been a decided effort to make it bigger because of climate change.
Yeah.
They're amending it based on actual field work that they do.
More data.
And data and whatnot and look at it. But at the end of the day, the important thing is going to be that projects that are anywhere near that, we know we have a obligation to look at it very closely. That's what we're gonna do.
Yep.
You know,
Great.
basically.
And this plays in with the stormwater.
But it's not gonna change things dramatically. They're just gonna,
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, it's Rachel, 30 Bradford Road. I just had my question, and then with the adjustment for man-made interruptions in groundwater and the water level fluctuations with regard to like shoreline, and I believe there's a person that mentioned before that that they currently have water issues. So if a development or if modification of land further exacerbates the floodplain overlay district, does FEMA come in and calculate those modifications?
Are you saying the development is within the floodplain?
I think the translation, like, 10 years from now, they're doing the map again, there's been a development. That development creates more runoff, they get more data points. Are they factoring in that, new impermeable land into their new floodplain overlay?
I would say that's a question for FEMA. I don't know how they.
That's a very complex question.
Yeah, I don't know how they calculate those.
But, Mr. Chair,
Nathan, please.
if you follow our stormwater regulations, you need to handle all the water
Yes, you
on
do.
your parcel.
Correct.
That's right.
Floodplain has temporary storage, you actually have to store whatever floodplain you're disturbing
On site.
to a certain percentage higher, so.
And then perk it out slowly. I mean, it's,
Excellent.
one more comment. So the other side to this, which we haven't talked about, is that professional engineers are looking at this very closely. So before a project comes before the town, the people are represented by professional engineers who dig into these requirements of the floodplain, stormwater and whatnot. So they kind of know up front what their risk is, and they have to compensate for that in the design. So they have to look at it very closely when they get to those areas, whether it's a aquifer protection zone, which we have, or the stormwater, or the floodplain.
Yeah.
So they have these separate zones that they'll look at carefully before they
There's
make a design, because they know it's very important.
Yeah, there's calculations that they're required to submit to Charlie, who then reviews it and obviously discusses with the DPW, Matt, you know, who reviews the calculations as well. And there's a determination on whether or not they're meeting the flood compensatory storage or if they're not.
and I'm just gonna say this out loud. The engineer who does the work has a license he wants to keep. He loses his license, he loses his job. So that's how that's handled, and those engineers that go through education constantly. They're very technical people and boring as get out, but that's their livelihood.
We have that as
I don't want to entertain anyone else.
I'd like to make a motion.
I was
Oh,
gonna
do you have
say-
another comment?
No, I'd like to make a motion.
You do it.
This one.
Go for it. Go for it, Nathan.
I'm not doing the last one.
I move that the planning board recommend that the town vote on the proposed amendment. That the
Vote to
planning board
approve.
Vote to approve, yes. Section 320.82, floodplain overlay district.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Seconded by Julie. Any further discussion? Ken?
So, in case this question comes up at town meeting, and it may or may not be of interest, but would it make sense for us to show the floodplains the way they exist in the town now on a slide? So in case someone-
Yeah, I could add a slide showing from our GIS showing our floodplain.
If that's a recommendation you wanna go with or not.
I just acknowledge that
I think it would be
You
helpful.
can bring all the
Crowded.
information you wanna bring, but.
It may be helpful to have it available if requested.
Oh,
Yep.
have it available.
if requested.
I'll just add it in the slide.
So if somebody just says, well, wait,
Throw it on
is
the
this all
website.
brand, if someone happens to say, is this all brand new?
Yeah.
We can emphasize the fact that here are the
Yeah.
locations
I'll
now,
include it as a slide.
and they're simply getting amended.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Finally, last of the five, to see if the town will vote to approve the proposed amendments to section 320-2 definitions, or to take any action there too. So we have a set of definitions we're updating. Can you explain why and what they're about?
Yeah, so these went along with the model bylaw that was given to us from DCR. These are just words that are used within the bylaw that they felt needed definitions.
This is
That there's-
regarding flood?
Yep, floodplain. Yep, and it's so that there's no confusion as to what words mean when you're looking at the bylaw.
I'm not going to read all the definitions, but I am going to put in the record just quickly what the terms are. Development, floodway, functionally dependent use, highest adjacent grade, historic structure, recreation, new construction, recreational vehicle, regulatory floodway, special flood hazard area, start of construction, structure, substantial repair of foundation, variance, and violation. Those are the new definitions.
Correct.
That pertain particularly to the floodplain.
And that pertain,
Yep.
Got it.
go with the floodplain, etc.
Correct.
Comments? Yes, Ken?
Okay, so I was gonna comment on what you just said. So these go with anything, because they're landing in the 2.0 section.
There is.
But their use will be within typically the floodplain.
Yeah, so when you look at our definitions, none of these are definitions that are duplicate. I looked at our bylaw, I determined just to make sure. Some of these are just amending it. Some of the, in the sense of, there'll be a reference saying floodplain bylaw.
Okay, so we don't have the definition of a structure in there.
No.
A variance?
We do have a structure definition. Does it match?
Oh, so this, when I updated it, this is only for floodplain management purposes, it says. Means for floodplain management purposes. It's gonna be, it's
floodplain management purposes. It's actually in the definition.
correct.
Okay, Mr. Chair, so are we?
There's gonna be another,
It's gonna be two, the word structure will be in the first one, which exists now.
That?
And this one. Yes.
or it's going to be added to it.
Or it's a subset of the original definition.
I don't know.
So it adds a sentence maybe to.
Yeah, it's probably going to add a sentence. I think the best way would be to keep it as a separate one, but it's up to, I have no
Figured the word
preference.
structure was in there, so-
I have no
It is.
preference.
It is in there.
I knew it was in there.
Yeah, but in this one, we have a specification that says for floodplain management purposes. So that, because FEMA and, our town bylaw may not have the same definition of certain things. That's why they specifically give us these.
Right, okay.
Like development, there is a specific definition under the floodplain for development.
So does it need a preamble that says these definitions apply only to the floodplain?
Most of them do.
Okay, I haven't read the whole thing, but yeah, just, I would be confused if I saw structure then structure again.
Mhm.
Next to each other on the list as opposed to a list of definitions for the general bylaw and then definitions that apply specifically to 8.1. Or specifically to the section, I don't know what it is, 8.2, whatever it is.
8.2.
Yeah.
So it's,
But that's how you put it in the book.
We don't necessarily have to vote on this tonight.
right. It's not something
We can continue this to the 25th and have a final vote if the board wants to make amendments to this.
I'd recommend we move it to the next meeting and clarify this group, if this group is intended specifically for the floodplain, that somehow we figure that out. Maybe we have a definition of just the word, maybe it starts with the word floodplain, and then this is a subset to that in the definitions.
Or I could add at the end of everything, a parentheses for floodplain bylaw.
Something like that, but there can be some confusion here because especially.
Yeah, and there's only and that's what, there's a couple, there are specific things within the bylaw that FEMA has a different.
Opinion of.
Yeah, so I think, so if we want to, at the end, create a parentheses where I say, for floodplain bylaw, I can do that.
identify them in some way as being specific to the floodplain bylaw. Yeah.
Does that mean we can't vote tonight? Do we have to put it off to get an amendment, or can we vote now and based with the understanding, the condition you just applied?
It's,
What's the condition?
I would not, I would say, we can push it off until the 25th. It's not a big
All right.
thing.
Do we need to vote to do that? And do we need a continuance of the public hearing?
Continuance of the public hearing.
All right. So is that the will?
Well, just to Ken's point, signs is like that, right? There's a sign definition, and then there's all these, there's 20 different signs.
Mm-hmm.
That's an example of how this was handled for signs.
Mm-hmm.
Floodplain definitions, and then they go below.
Okay.
Or something along those lines.
So
But
what
I
would
agree
we
with
see
Mr.
at the next meeting then? There would be the similar document with that little preamble to show how it would be used?
Well, how does the board want to handle it, I guess?
I have a recommendation that we use Mr. Ruiz's brain and thought process to come up with an answer for us before the next meeting.
That's my point.
Give us a draft before the meeting, and then we'll be ready to vote on it at the meeting.
Julie?
That's my recommendation.
As my gift of being a non-planning oriented planner, the way like a dictionary works, right? Like you're coming for the S here, you're not gonna look for a separate floodplain definition. Once I find that, I'm just gonna be done. So I'm just gonna leave it at that, but that would worry me for the general population using this. But I trust that you'll come up with something lovely.
Yeah, so currently how I have it draft written into
Yeah.
our bylaw as, I have it as order of, alphabetically.
Yeah.
And then everything is referenced, floodplain bylaw. That's how I have it written right now.
So the definition is specific to the floodplain bylaw. Yeah.
I have the same concern. I think Danny can clear it up a little bit
Yeah.
more because.
And I think if I print out the full
Okay.
definitions bylaw for everyone to read, I think everyone will be on.
All right. So
We'll figure out a way to insert it, so,
Okay.
like you said, when someone looks at it, they'll find it easily, and it'll
Yep.
be right there.
So I think the consensus is that we're going to ask Danny to show us the full definitions and how these will fall in it, and that we'll vote on this. Does that give you enough time before the town
Yeah,
meeting?
yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We have to we just need to have this approved by the end of the month. And,
Okay.
and so on the 25th, it's plenty.
So what we need now is a continuance?
Continue the public hearing. Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
sir.
When I read that, and I looked at the definition, section 2, and I'm looking at words like, development, new construction, that's all well and good, because that's general, and it applies to the bylaws. And then when I get down to the floodplain section, I wondered why it just couldn't go into section 8 at the beginning of the floodplain. Because if I'm looking at the bylaw and I wanted to know about floodplain, I would like to see the definitions in section 8 and not in the general descriptions or definitions in section 2.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so currently how our bylaw, the reasoning behind it is because all of our definitions for all of the bylaw, even section 8.3, section 10.9, any section is within the definitions. That's how we currently
But
have
they're
it.
unrestricted, they're not, those definitions don't apply just to that.
We do have sections like that.
I didn't see any in the definition.
So 10.1, there's certain definitions that only really apply to open space. There's only certain ones that apply to inclusionary housing.
Are they in section 10.1 or in section?
They're shown in definitions.
Yeah.
We just did this with the inclusionary housing bylaw recently. When we amended the inclusionary housing bylaw, we put all the definitions that we needed to amend over there in the definition section.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yeah.
add some history to it. Been with the planning board almost 10 years now. Definitions used to be in other places, and that caused a great deal of concern and argument. So putting them all in one spot was determined to be the best way to do it. Because engineers would miss it.
And I agree
Yeah.
that each one of them should say, like flood plan, floodway should be in the very description of the definition for each one, so that everybody knows that it only applies to that.
That's actually, I think, where we were going with that. But yeah, no, I agree. But I recall a very tense conversation one long evening.
All right.
One final comment,
Yes, sir.
for me anyway. I think we all agree with the logic that John has told us, but I'm not sure that everything in here applies only to the floodway. So I think another thought for you to consider.
These are the definitions that they gave me that I
But
have
for
to
instance,
include.
there's a definition in here for a recreational vehicle. Okay.
Yeah,
So-
but this is the definition I have to follow for floodplain.
I agree. I'm just saying that when you look at it, must we only have a definition for recreational vehicle within the floodplain requirements, or should it be in everything? I don't know. But I'm
Do
sure
we
when you come back.
have a? I don't think
That
we
might be
even-
out of the scope of our discussion tonight.
If we find something in here that applies in general, I'd keep it in the regular definition. If it wasn't
that
specific
is.
to a floodway, it's a pain. That's what it amounts to. So,
Yeah, because I don't think there is a definition for recreational. No, there's not. There's not.
exactly.
Because when I went through all these, I think there was only one or two that I had to just add an extra sentence of the definition to. But
Anyway, it needs a little more work.
yeah. Okay.
Yes, Rachel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question. Are there any deviations from the model floodplain bylaw that, most of the definitions and most of the amendments, I reviewed, like the Massachusetts state model, yada, yada, but are there deviations that, the townspeople should be aware of or modifications to what's been stated by the state of Massachusetts?
No, I had followed everything that the state gave us. It was sent over to DCR for review, and they've okayed it.
Okay, wonderful. Also, I feel like the vehicle, I read that one, it's a little bit odd sounding. I don't know if anyone has the same opinion, but it just seemed a little bit strange. So I don't know if I mean, I guess that's my opinion. But I don't know if it would apply to every sort of recreational vehicle that exists in the town of Ayer because
Yeah,
it is different, so.
Yeah, I'm just going with what I was given.
Oh, no, I wasn't critiquing that.
No, I know. Don't worry. I'm not taking it personally, but
Okay.
yeah, no, I.
So,
Thank you.
do we have a motion for continuance
I
of?
was going to say, move to continue the public hearing.
March
I've lost
25th.
my
March
agenda.
25th.
The public hearing for the proposed zoning amendments to to the planning board meeting of March 25th.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. We have one additional piece of business, which is the meeting minute approval. The only, I sent you my edits. The only thing of material substance is regarding the vote at the last, yes.
That was updated. I had Sam updated.
So we're all good with that? I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, he voted no.
You voted no, not abstained. Okay, good. So that's corrected. That's it. That's all I have to say. Anyone else has comments on it? Hearing none, I make a motion that the board approve the minutes for February 11th, 2025, as revised and submitted to everyone.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
can I throw in a quick piece of housekeeping?
Please do.
I'm sorry, but just because we discussed Zoom tonight and how we assume maybe we'll be able to continue having virtual meetings if the law allows. I just want to remind us as a board, it's courtesy, and that running a fully virtual or a fully in-person meeting is a lot easier to do than running this hybrid meeting. And it's wonderful that we offer it. I like to take advantage of it, but we're going into a very busy season, as we've discussed, and we're not here to fix people's computers or to make it work or to be even like this. We have Macs, which is awesome, and we will continue to do a good job, but I know we all are caring people and we like to help, but I don't want us to get distracted on the technical glitches, because I sense long nights coming up. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're recommending, are you making a recommendation with that statement, or?
I'm just recommending that if we get asked to help people with their technology connections, that we have an IT person, and that we're not here to make sure the connection works perfectly. We're here to run the meeting.
Yeah, and that's why there's writing definitely in the preamble to the meeting that it is a courtesy.
So just for all of us to talk about, not for us to do anything.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Everyone, thank you tonight. Appreciate it, and have a good couple of weeks.